Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody, to Chaps. Many cultures popping up on your screen unannounced. What's going on, Brett? Why are we so unstructured and unplanned and unscheduled?
It's ambiguous. It's a surprise. It's living outside of our comfort zone, or maybe presenting outside of the comfort zone to the whatever audience is watching us that have popped up in the last 10 minutes. We're experimenting. Yeah, but we're doing A/B testing. I think that's the term for it, isn't it? A/B testing.
I don't know. What about C and D's? They don't get a test?
No, we just it's beyond. I'm just at A and B, dude. Don't push me.
All right, I will push you because the human mind does not hear the four-letter words. That's when you tell your child, "Don't touch the hot stovetop." All
Right.
the kid hears is "touch the hot stovetop" because
Yes.
the four-letter word bypasses your conscious mind or distracts your conscious mind and lets the message sink in. So I did not hear what he said, the good Brett. So I'm gonna poke the bear a little bit. So I'm gonna get you started. What are we experimenting? What's the surprise, Brett?
Well, I don't know. Can you hear me good now? Can you hear me?
I can.
Hey?
I can.
You can? Okay,
Yeah.
good. I thought you said you couldn't hear me.
Just didn't hear the four-letter words. So
you didn't hear the four-letter words. Yes, don't. Right.
So we're springing surprises on you people. See, I even created a little insert here just so you know that this is a surprise, right? And as you're being surprised, you also get to ask us questions. Ask us anything. Not sure if we'll answer it, but you can ask us. I think what I like what Brett said in the beginning, not I don't think so. I know that I like it, is it's ambiguous. We took ourselves out of a routine. We keep doing that to ourselves. We actually, it's almost like one of those spoof martial arts films with Inspector Clouseau. Remember the old original Pink Panther where Inspector Clouseau had this super racist theme, actually, this Chinese gentleman cohabitating in his apartment and surprising him out of nowhere so he could train his reflexes. That's
Kato.
what we're doing.
Kato, his name was.
See, we're dating ourselves. The millennials and the Ys the Z's watching this like, what the heck are these old blokes talking about? Well, look it up, Pink Panther. So we're keeping each other on our toes. We're keeping each other sharp, and also to highlight that life will throw curveballs at you, and the expected is sometimes not to be expected. It's the ambiguous, the ambiguity that will hit you out of nowhere, and it will make life a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you work outside of your native culture. And that's what I've been doing for many years, and dare I say, I am still surprised here and there. Even though I've lived in the United States for so long, this country does not cease to throw curveballs at me.
Yes.
Did you catch a curveball today, Brett?
Oh, well. Interesting you ask. The one thing about just popping up and doing a topic is we're trying to make all of these evergreen. Our great guest, Karen Jacobson, said, I know this is evergreen, but at the moment we're talking about pandemics and that kind of thing. And if you're watching this in 2030 and wondering what the hell we're talking about, you probably have read that in the history books. But for today, we're talking about topical incidents. And I'm not so much going to concentrate on the topical incident itself. The incident is, I would just describe it, just another kind of example of how this society kind of views law enforcement, where a whole family gets dragged out of a car and children get chained to the ground. And I use that word intentionally. They got chained to the ground or in handcuffs, but I'm going to just call it what it is. Children, a little girl with a princess tiara on, got put on the ground on hot asphalt because the police made a mistake and thought that the car that their parents were driving was stolen. An absolute terrible incident. Now, that wouldn't be bad enough until you see the police chief come on and say, yes, that's a terrible thing. We screwed up. That was terrible. But, and that's what gets me. And so it's this culture I'm interested in, this culture of we are driven to justify what we do even when we're wrong. And I had another discussion with a colleague of mine this morning where we're talking about, like, which I forget the saying. He says, "But is just a entrance to a dark part of our body that we don't want to go near." Right? That's a but, and it stinks. Right? It is this constant reaction that somebody calls you out on your crap, but you feel the need to go, "Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean it that way. You took it the wrong way. This is our policy." All this kind of stuff. So
I'm sorry you feel. I'm sorry you feel that way, right?
I'm sorry you feel that way. Yes. Let me clarify why I said what I said, or let me clarify what I did, why I did what I did. And quite frankly, no one gives a crap. I mean, no one gives a crap why you did what and what your intention was. You screwed up. You screwed up. Now, I've been guilty of doing this myself. I'm not saying I'm, the angel here. But I find I'm really trying to stop myself, and it came out in a wonderful workshop I did a couple of years ago with a good friend of ours, Lena Morkbeck, who is in improv theatre, and she practices in improv theatre. They practice at yes and, right? Yes and, not yes but, not no but, or all that kind of thing. It's yes and. It is adding something of value. Yes and. I see where you're coming from, and that what I did was wrong. Now, I don't know. I'm rambling here.
No, you're not.
I'm a little sassy today.
Are we a bit salty, sir?
I'm a bit salty today.
You want some lime and tequila with that?
I do.
All right, let me pour you. So this is. I'm glad you're bringing this up, because this is something that my wife and I teach in our communication classes. So some of you might know this, that I have a life outside of the cultural training world. However, the life outside bleeds into my cultural training work, because we do NLP class. We teach clean and efficient communication, and there's a method to the madness, and one of the methodologies is called NLP. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. However, that is one of the core principles in language patterning. Is that a word? Patterning. Patterning.
Yeah.
Or as you say in Australia, pattern.
Pattern. The pattern is not a general.
No, it's not. It's a reoccurring thing. It's a pattern. And you're not from Australia. You're from Australia, right?
Australia.
All right. I'm getting sidetracked here. So one of the language patterns that I encourage people to use is the conjunction of and instead of but, because the word but is, and it of course in English it's a 3-letter word, but in Spanish it's pero. I think it's the same in Italian. In German it's a 4-letter word, aber. So many languages have the word but. It may be not quite as short, yet it is also a very powerful word, because the word but, conjoining two parts of a sentence, negates everything that you said before the word but. I love you, honey, but I hate the way you load the dishwasher. So the word but is simply negating the fact that I love my honey, and apparently it's more important that the dishwasher gets loaded properly. So this is a terrible mistake we made, but we followed the process. So you're basically negating the fact that you acknowledged a mistake half a second earlier. So but is a killer in linguistic terms, and it muddies and dirties your communication, which, if you want to be successful with other people, whether it's within your own culture or cross-cultural gaps, the best tool you have is clean and efficient and nonviolent communication. And the word but can be a very loaded gun in that context. I'm not saying the word but has no value at all. There are certainly incidences where the word but is actually needed linguistically. Yet when you're trying to say one thing and justified with another, and putting that together with the word but, then your apology here is eradicated by your attempt of justifying. So not a good thing. So and is a nice conjunction because it brings actually sometimes two conflicting ideas together. Oh my God, cognitive dissonance. Yes, you can have two competing thoughts going on in your mind. Honey, yes, I love you. And I think your skills in loading a dishwasher are pure crap. Yet I still love you. So I'm not negating that by using the word and, am I? So it can be as simple as changing one 3-letter word out for another one, and you create a whole different meaning.
Good. Takes practice, though, I bet.
Yes, and we have a law in our family that we're a family of 4, well, sometimes 5 if our oldest daughter's boyfriend is staying over, which seems to happen quite a bit lately. So we have this law or the house rule, the code of conduct that gives everyone, regardless of their age, the permission to call each other out on linguistic violations. So when I say the word but in this way that I just described as inefficient communication, my kids will say, Dad, practice what you preach. Okay. So that happens. And also, well, there's a book, and I wish I had it here. See, this is what happens with pop-ups. I'm not prepared. Okay, I have the cover, but it's a trilogy. But it's not the. There's 3 books in this box here, but the one that I'd like to hold up is apparently in another room. But what's important here is that it's by a gentleman called Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel Ruiz, who's no longer with us, who wrote the book The 4 Agreements, Toltec Wisdoms. So if you don't know who the Toltecs were, they were the inhabitants of what is now Mexico before the Aztecs lived there. So these are ancient native Mexican or native Mesoamerican wisdoms. And the 4 agreements are somewhat of the family constitution in the Hofelehaus. So what are these, you may ask? Well, that you asked. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. Do what you say you're going to do and say only what you're going to do. So be impeccable with your words, number 1. Number 2, do not make assumptions. Because if you make assumptions, you make an ass out of you and me.
Yes.
Number 3 is do not take anything personal. Nothing that people do has anything to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And number 4, dang it, I thought I had them memorized, right? Impeccable with your word. Do not make assumptions. Oh, it'll come back to me. So these 4 agreements also are part of our conditioning in our family and part of our family rules, so to say. Now, while I was ranting, I noticed that there were comments coming in that you were so kind to eliminate. And I didn't follow it quite, but I do want to address it. Why were there comments that we needed to take off? I'm curious.
Well, obviously in I think speaking to your 3rd agreement there, people have decided to, which is usual, in this kind of day of social media and people having no life, is that they tend to come in and try and throw people like you and me off our game. And we just went straight through it because it is all about them, not about us. And because we have so many other good people in our community, that kind of stuff can just, wash off our shoulders. So that's fine. They came, they went, they will move on to their next little target in their basement of their mother. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. It's interesting. Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about haters that come after him, and he says, there's a way of he at the same time he balances that dismissing it, saying their life is miserable, but respecting the hell out of it, which is an interesting dichotomy when you think about it, because I think he talks about this. It's be impeccable with your word. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk is as honest as you possibly can be of anybody. He swears a lot. He says, this is who I am. But my word is my bond. Everything I say to you is right from my heart. I don't sugarcoat it. He doesn't take the stuff personally. He doesn't take that stuff that people throw at him personally. And he's got millions of people after him all the time. But he doesn't make assumptions on the fact that, okay, do they have a particular agenda or anything like that? He just looks at the comments and he said, I've heard him say this. He looks at the comments and says, what is it in there that I can learn from, right? Maybe there's some validity, right, to this, right? And then, of course, he gets up every day just doing his very best for his family first and then his business and, and obviously the audience that follows him. So I think it's interesting that right in amongst this particular episode, we get that kind of stuff, which is fun.
Yeah, that's fitting. So as you can see, I did find it, not in my mind because I'm an old bloke. So I have a second mind that's called a computer, and that has that stored away at my fingertips. Mr. Ruiz also wrote a follow-up book to the 4 agreements, in which he has a 5th agreement. The 5th agreement is particularly useful for those of us who work globally. And I'm paraphrasing because, again, my memory isn't, I guess, what it used to be. But my paraphrasation of the 5th agreement is nothing in life has meaning except for the meaning that you choose to give it.
Ah, yes.
Because our minds are meaning-making machines. We decide in split seconds whether we want to give a behavior, an experience, a positive meaning, a neutral meaning, a negative meaning, or whatever type of meaning you want to give it, right? So if somebody does something that you're not familiar with, or that's a behavior that you're uncomfortable, unfamiliar, or that is unknown to you, it's quick to make an assumption. That would be a violation of one of the 4 agreements. And it's also easy to give that a meaning based on your experience that you've had so far in your life. You know probably very little about that person whose behavior is unknown to you, yet the meaning you give it is based on your filters, on your experience. So that's why nothing in life really has a meaning except for the meaning that you choose to give it. So since you have a choice, we as humans have a choice in how we want to respond to our environment. We don't only act upon instinct and reflex, we have choice. And once you realize that you have choice, you can choose to give something a meaning that supports you. Because if you choose to give things meaning that are negative to you, or that impede your progress, or slow down your growth, or that make you a victim, then you will likely stay in that victim space. If you choose to give positive meaning to your life's events, then you'll see how life changes for you. I'm not going to be too philosophical about this, but these are some of the core beliefs we have in our family.
Yep. Very important beliefs. I absolutely agree. And they should be a core belief. It's frustrating to see people that you know and you love, and even people you're close to, still hold on to hateful or ill-informed attitudes. It's just it's sad to see, because and I use the word freedom a lot, right? I mean, I'm free because of the way I look. I'm free because of the language I speak. I have a lot of privilege. I'm also free for the fact that I have a lot of people around the world from all different backgrounds and nationalities, faiths, and beliefs that I learn from. And it just gives you such a freedom that you don't feel fear, you don't feel threatened, you you accept the life. I don't know. Again, it's not trying to get too philosophical. I just wish people would understand what that feels like. I mean, the other side, there's just one final thing just before we finish today. I just want to touch on today, again, a topical thing. Huge explosion in Lebanon, in Beirut, in Lebanon, which took place. And this is the difficulty or the challenge about having such wonderful colleagues around the world, friends and people that we know all around the world, is that I guess when you have such a global community and you have such a global a set of relationships, these things happen, and you immediately think of particular people that are in your network, right? And that kind of makes it hard. There's a number of people, even back in Australia when I grew up, there was a lovely, wonderful Lebanese community there. And I've got Lebanese friends, and I'm just thinking, and I know they've got family there, so we just put we just send our heart out to these people and their families, and it looks like it was it might have been an accident, down on the docks there, and so something that similar happened in China a couple of years ago in Tianjin. But we'll see what happens. But no matter what the reason behind it, I mean, it's a human
lives are lost.
It's a human tragedy when these things happen, and
especially in a country that's been so tormented in the last couple of years with multiple things. I've reached out to one of my high school friends. She's married in Beirut with kids, and I haven't heard back from her yet. So I don't know how safe or not safe she is. So stay strong, Beirut.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we'll sign off. And thank you again for bearing with us for this pop-up episode. It won't always be like this. We will plan some. We'll pop up sometimes. We may pop up. What happens if we pop up twice in one day? It's going to throw. I don't do math live really good. The good thing about being at 22 episodes, we know it's Tuesday on the 5th week. It has to be episode 22. If we start throwing in other episodes, I'm going to lose count.
Yikes!
I'm going to lose count, and somebody's going to lose an eye.
Sorry. Well, and you know how hard it is to count backwards from 100 in 7 steps, right? So we've heard about how that can be a big challenge for some, or big mile marker. So the counting live, careful, folks. This was a pop-up, and yet, as you see, I'm always hiding in front of a bookshelf. Haha. Take all the time you need for that. I'm hiding in front of a bookshelf, so no matter how we pop up, I'll pull some wisdom from back there.
Absolutely.
And if you have books that you need to talk about,
yes,
let's do that.
Let's do that.
Because Brett and I, we kind of know people once in a while. That comes with age in the territory. We know a few people who know how to write, right? So chances are we'll have some authors of a decent oeuvre here once in a while. And if you're among them, I mean, we're not talking your self-published Amazon thing that went nowhere. But if you have somebody that has some substance, maybe it's you who has produced the substance, or is someone we've read and we simply haven't made contact with you yet, feel free to reach out. We're a very grateful pair of hosts. We'll make sure to let you shine.
And we have a grateful community who will benefit from your knowledge and your wisdom, and that's the most important thing. Yes, books are important to us, books that we love, books that we care about, books that we learn from, and we're going to be doing a little bit of that topic too. I think it was a great suggestion by my colleague that way. I did it. I got it right.
I don't know who said it. Books are only a threat if unopened.
Absolutely. All righty. That's us.
All right.
Out.
Thanks, mate.
See you tomorrow. Right, mate. Bye.